Hello, everyone. I'm Ralph, a software engineer here at Genesys, and in this DevDrop, I'll show you how to export your data actions in Genesys Cloud to CXS code. I have already made a DevDrop before on how to create data actions both in the Genesys Cloud UI and in CXS code, which I highly recommend for you to check out. The link is in the video description. So in this video, I'll just be providing an additional guide on how to efficiently export a data action to your CXS code project. I'll still be using the same example that I did in the previous step drop, which is the get random fact, where we fetch data from an API endpoint, parse it, and then use the data that we fetch for our flows. So in the last video, I showed that most of the details that you will need to put in the CXS code to create a data action can be copy and pasted from the one you created in the Genesys Cloud UI, like the input contract, the output contract, the configuration request and response, especially with the contracts where we can just get the JSON format of the input contract and also the output contract. So what we can do is just copy this one and then go to our IDE where we do our CXS scope project and then paste it from there. Then we can also do it the same from the others, which is slightly tedious. You go back and forth from your IDE and then go from the Genesys Cloud UI, same with the configuration. So it's quite a hassle. So fortunately, the Genesys Cloud UI has an export feature so that you can copy and paste those details in a single location. So we can do that by going here in the Summary tab, and on the right side of it is a button called Export Action. So we can download the data action and it will output a JSON file. So we can check this one out in our IDE. So let's put it on the right side. So upon inspecting this JSON file, we can see that it's the things that we need to make the data action in our CXS code. So in here, you can see the contract input, which is the same here in the input schema. It's the same from what we have here on the contract input here in the CXS code. Same with the output, contract output, and also the config request and config response. It's also the same here. And the JSON file also provide other details that we will need to create the data action in CXS code. For example, here we have the secure, which is also the same here in CXS code with secure. However, it's already optional, so we don't need to put it since it defaults to false. But it's a helpful way for you to know what are the other fields that we can put in the data action. So the other information are like the action type, the integration type, and also the name, which you can copy and paste it here in the CSS code. So that is how you can export your data action from the Genesys Cloud UI to CXS code. It's simple as that. And in addition, if you already created your integration in the Genesys Cloud UI, you can also fetch the created integration in CXS code. So the idea of the integration is what we only need to connect the data action to the specific integration, as we can see here in line 22, where it is a required field where you need the ID of the integration. And one way for you to do that is to use the data source of the Genesys Cloud integration. And in order to fetch those, we just need the name of the integration. So Terraform will try to search in your Genesys organization the integration that you just provided. And once it has been found, it will get its ID. And we can use this data source as the input to the integration ID for the data action that we'll be creating. So since I've named this data source as useFacts underscore integration underscore existing, we can just change this one to point it to this one. And then since it has an ID, yep, it has the ID. And probably this data action will be linked to the already existing integration that we created in the Genesys Cloud UI. So yeah, that's how you export your data actions in Genesys Cloud to CXS code. I hope this will help you streamline your organization's CI/CD development to improve customer experience. Please do visit the Genesys Cloud Developer Center for the latest blogs, blueprints, accelerators, guides, DevDrops, and other resources. I hope to see you again on my next DevDrop. Bye.